It feels like tradition now that every few years we have to watch Joaquin Phoenix combine the art of acting with a nervous breakdown for a few hours, and that's just now an accepted part of pop culture. So, with that in mind, let's talk about Phoenix's latest A24 movie, Beau is Afraid, which was released over here last weekend. Written and directed by Ari Aster, the man behind Hereditary and Midsommar, it definitely feels like an extension and evolution of the latter, and that it feels like a wild fever dream that experiencing will even detach you, the viewer, from reality. The film has been in the works since 2011, with Aster once at times describing it as a Jewish Lord of the Rings, which is a little bit of a stretch, but again, I don't know how to describe this myself. Or if you pumped a 10-year-old full of Zoloft and had him get your groceries. Again, there any comparison is valid to this because it's just so wild. No rational comparison with any other projects does it justice for me. But for me, if I was to try, I'd say it's like The Wizard of Oz for adults meeting Birdman with everything everywhere all at once abilities to blend side-splitting surrealist comedy with iconic moments of profundity, often within seconds of each other. So, how do I even begin to describe the plot? Which again is pretty much unspoilable because you just have to see it to fully grasp it and believe it. We open on Phoenix's Beau talking to his therapist about the anxiety he's experiencing, going to visit his mother, who's clearly a central character for him throughout these therapy sessions. It's then that the penny drops that we're experiencing this partially in reality, but also in the unreliable narrator world of a damaged Beau, riddled with generational trauma and anxieties that cause him to lose his grip on what exactly is happening and what's just in his head. The blink and you'll miss it detail is so rich and hilarious. For example, early on, we see that Beau lives in a crime-ridden neighborhood terrorized by the birthday boy Stabman, who's a hobo who trawls the streets naked and stabs people, who on the news is described as a circumcised white man, beside a sex shop called Erectus Ejectus in a graffiti-filled apartment block containing quotes on the wall like "Hail Satan, shoot dope, kill kids, fuck everyone." And for dinner, Beau eats Aloha, which is O apostrophe Loha, which the packaging describes as Hawaii and Ireland's favorite. That was one in particular that I loved. The movie never relents from this kind of half reality, half dream state, half anxiety ridden perspective either. It effortlessly blends his lived experience with his trauma filled nightmares and the anxiety laden lens he views the world through. In the first conversation we witness between him and his mother, we see how Beau is controlled by, on one hand, over the top declarations of almost smothering love. He's definitely being love bombed. And on the other, passive aggressive guilt and silence, left constantly feeling the need to please her at his own expense. It's a very Irish Catholic mother, guilt ridden style of control. During one conversation, we see her say, for example, "Your house, actually, you'll find this is my house, which is also yours, and you'll always be welcome." And I don't know if that line felt very real for anyone else, but yeah, color me triggered there. Early into the movie, Beau receives some bad news, which skyrockets the movie's wild plot into action. It's a movie about narcissistic mothers and how warped your reality starts to become when you believe the lies parents who abuse the power dynamic to control the narrative and gaslight you, because accepting who they are and what they feel about you is actually just too painful. It's about how generational trauma manifests day to day and how people experiencing trauma are both desperate to find connection with others, but unable to do so without healing themselves first. Or at least that's what I think it's about, or maybe that's something I actually need to discuss with my own therapist. I've never seen a better illustration of anxiety on screen. Aster's masterful direction perfectly captures that feeling that the world is all honed in on your most minor concerns, not in a narcissistic but in a threatening way. At 3 hours, it somehow feels like both minutes and a week to experience. On one hand, scenes are allowed room to breathe for Phoenix to just chew scenery and take you through his trauma, but also for often hilarious things to happen around him in the background. So it never feels like a slog because literally anything can happen at any point on screen, and you're constantly in that gripped feeling of dramatic tension of what the fuck am I about to see next. On the other, we're transported through so many different experiences and realities throughout those 3 hours that you feel like you've binge watched the entire back catalogue of Black Mirror in one sitting and are suitably mindfucked as a result. The supporting cast are stellar, filled with funny but also hugely capable dramatic actors who are all dialed into this weird plane of reality and all get it. Special mentions go to Nathan Lane's embarrassing dad doctor, Roger, who had the entire cinema laughing before he even said a line. Like when he just walks into the room, it is instantly hilarious, but also he's a real character. And then doubled over again with every, "Hey, my dude," exclamation. But also need to mention Zoe Lister-Jones and Paddy Lupon, who get the Mona character crucially so ride over 2 different time periods in a tightrope act that makes or breaks the plot, along with always welcome supporting cast members like Richard Kind, Dennis Menashe, and Stephen McKinley Henderson. It's also got some incredible needle drop moments. I'll leave it for you to discover why, but rest assured, I will never ever listen to Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey again, for example, without breaking down laughing. Beau's Afraid is a movie you absolutely need to watch in the cinema, for better and worse. In my screening, it combined constant howls of laughter, which again, it has that unique kind of weird movie thing of everyone laughing, but all at different points, because there's so much going on and tons of Easter eggs in the background that will no doubt reward multiple viewings, along with beleaguered and baffled people just walking out at random intervals. I saw about 6 people walk out of the screening that I was in, a pretty full Lighthouse cinema screening. But again, like, it's one of those kind of movies. For me, one of my favorite experiences is to walk into a theater and feel like you've eaten a block of cheese before bedtime and are experiencing the weirdest dream you've ever had, except you're actually around other people who are also experiencing it too. So that feeling of vulnerability and defensiveness when you're confronted with something this weird and trying to figure it all out, mixed with the exposure of being around others while you try and figure out just what you feel, that's art operating for me at its provocative peak. This is an objectively excellently made and acted movie that tells the story exactly they want to tell. But is it something you'll actually enjoy? That's really subjective. Some people will probably have this be one of their top 10 movies of all time. Some will absolutely despise it. Some will be uncomfortably triggered and re-traumatized, and some will just think it's self-indulgent nonsense. But I urge you to please, please, please try and experience it for yourself, because the one thing I promise you is that whatever you feel about Beau Is Afraid at the end, you will not be fucking bored.